Joe, she's just a little girl. She can light fires, yes, but you're making her sound like Armageddon.
Yes. And that's what it might well be. Suppose lighting fires is merely the tip of the iceberg.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I am talking about a talent that is directly linked to this child's pituitary gland, undeveloped pituitary gland. What happens when she becomes adolescent and that sleeping gland wakes and becomes for 20 months the most powerful force in the human body? Suppose we have a child here who someday is capable of creating a nuclear explosion simply by the power of her will.
That's insane.
Is it? Is it? Then allow me to progress from insanity to utter lunacy. Suppose there is a little girl out there somewhere today, this morning, who has within her, lying dormant at present, the power someday to crack the very planet in two like a china plate in a shooting gallery.
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions. Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast. I am your host, Jason Bishop, and with me today is that pyromaniac known as Sam Stepanenko.
I'm burning up. I'm burning.
And Trish Coughlin is wise enough to stay away from open flames.
Hot stuff.
This week we're going to be talking about the Stephen King classic? Firestarter? I don't know. Is it? I don't know. I mean, it was a bestseller.
It was a bestseller, but I mean, it is one of his better known films from the 80s, and probably one of the better received ones.
Yeah.
I don't know about that either.
Don't forget, most of his 80s films were not particularly well received. I think Christine and Cujo were about it.
Yeah, let's face it, most horror movies did not review well, and a good hunk of them didn't really financially do well, at least the studio ones.
Yeah.
Until much, much later, they kind of... John Carpenter was associated with lots of projects, like his most famous one, The Thing, and The Fog, no less.
Yep.
Both were failures at the time.
But now they're classics.
Yeah, go figure.
Yes.
And it's those failures of The Thing, like a studio film, that kept him from doing this film. He was actually meant to be the director of Firestarter back in 1984. And
Oh, wow.
because of the failure of The Thing, he was taken off the project. But everything comes back around because he did do the soundtrack for the remake.
Yes, I saw that. I'm like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going like, oh, huh.
Yes, the soundtrack was great. Can't argue with John Carpenter's musical skills.
No, you cannot. No, you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're going to be comparing the 1984 film to the 2022 film, which a lot of people told me was terrible.
They were so wrong.
Well,
I mean, it's not great.
I'm going to say neither one of them are great, but I mean, for very different reasons. When I watched the remake, it kind of addressed some of the problems I had with the original, but then it made its own.
It has its own problems.
That's what I had the problem with. I'm like going, okay, so you're addressing some stuff, but now you've done some damage.
Yeah. This is going to be a complicated one because they did what we ask. I mean, when it comes down to what we want from a remake, we want fresh ideas while still keeping
the core story,
core story intact while kind of traveling your own path. So as far as I'm concerned, they did the assignment.
They did the assignment. And I mean, up front, I would say that they're fairly equal in terms of quality.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, runtimes are exactly the same. And the remake certainly uses that to do lots of different things.
Oddly, it tightens up the slow parts of the original film.
It really did something that I needed from the first one, was giving me a sense of who these people are.
Yes.
The original movie opens with them already running, and you getting some flashbacks of the experiment that was done on Andy McGee. And
his wife.
And his wife. And then those powers that they came out of that experiment with were transferred to their child. And that's shown in the flashbacks, but it's far more robust, I do believe, in the remake.
I totally agree. It gives you a sense of their family life before they go on the run.
Yeah.
Right. And leads into the running really well.
Yeah. I mean, I think the major flaw in the remake is how they utilize Captain Hollister.
I'd have to agree with that.
Yes.
I mean, very capable actress, but it was clear they didn't know what the hell her story was.
It was Gloria Rubin. She's great.
Yeah,
but she was
she's
freaking
fantastic.
wasted.
Yeah, they had no idea what her arc was. So here's this person who thinks she's doing some good stuff, but she keeps ordering all this nasty stuff.
Yeah, she's
so misguided.
Yeah.
And, like, in a way, they acknowledge the shop, quote unquote, the name of the place they did the experiments.
Yeah.
They acknowledge some of the stuff that they did was not right, and her mission is to kind of help these people out of the experiment, or so we're meant to believe. And I mean, you've got a walking nuclear bomb with Charlie, and she thinks she's going to help this kid by what? Killing her parents? Huh?
Yeah, there's some flawed logic there for
Yeah,
sure.
Well-
so the remake, I mean, there's some stuff you're just like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can get past that.
You know, if she had just done that sort of presentation to the doctor who did the experiments, then I would have bought it, because that was her trying to manipulate him,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that would have made complete sense to me.
Sure.
And then the evil, power-mad captain throughout the rest of the movie would have still made sense. But she flip-flopped between that so frequently, it's like, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt the same way about Rainbird. I actually thought the Rainbird in the remake, as much as George C. Scott is George C. Scott, this amazing actor, the Rainbird in the remake was really cool, but,
Underused.
well, not just underused.
Or not properly used, I guess.
Yeah, because,
Well, he
You know-
disappears for a significant part of the film. He just goes away
Well,
because they
and
put him in a pit.
yeah, and there's flip-flopping of morality. There wasn't enough in the story to drive him to do so, to have
I
that
was-
moral quandary.
They
See, I was
suggested...
going sort of with the fact that he was also experimented on, and he thought of them as like siblings, this family, and that's what I was clinging to.
That's what I got from it as well, but it was a blink and you miss it moment.
Yeah, no, it's there, and I caught it. I'm like, okay, this is a good setup. And then he just coldly kills off the people he's supposed to consider brother and sister. I mean, he killed Charlie's mother for this mission, and how Captain Hollister drew him back into the shop, it was pretty weak, the sales pitch, right?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see what the upside was for him to come back and do the things he was doing.
No, I agree with you on that
But,
one.
I mean, it was far less creepy than George C. Scott.
Fuck. I'm glad they
Yes.
fixed that later on in the film, because that first time was when you give her to me, that whole bit he was doing, I'm like, oh, this is just fucking creepy. Even in 1984, that was creepy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, strong pedo vibes.
Yes. My skin literally crawled. I'm like, oh, George, I can't believe they made you deliver
Right?
these lines.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can't
gross.
believe he delivered those
Yeah.
lines.
Mr. McGee and Miss McGee.
Where are they?
The summer cottage near Bradford.
I'll bring them here.
Oh, just like that. You know what that little girl can do.
I know what the little girl can do. That's why I'll bring her here. So you can do all your tests. On the condition that you give her to me for disposal when you're finished with her.
What?
I want her when you're finished with her.
You are mad.
All right, you are. So are you, mad as a hatter. You sit here making plans for controlling a force that's beyond your comprehension. A force that belongs only to the gods themselves.
What the hell are you talking about?
Things I'm sure you wouldn't want the world to know.
What's to stop me from having you erased right here and now?
My word that I've already made certain provisions that should I disappear, the shop will cease to exist within 6 weeks. And within 6 months, you will stand in front of a judge awaiting sentence for crimes serious enough to keep you behind bars for the rest of your life.
He was running around looking like tough guy, and he had the one eye all fogged out because it was blind. And then you switch to the eye patch halfway, 2/3 into the film.
Yeah. What was that? Like,
It's because
I just decided to add it.
It was because he got an infection from the contact that was in his eye. So he needed to take it off, and he wasn't fully recovered yet. So they used the eye patch
it
instead.
worked to great effect because the eye might have scared Charlie. That was sort of the way I read into it. It's like, well, he's covering it up.
But he's already met her without the eye patch.
Yeah, if they would have just thrown a little thing in there where he was like, I think my eye creeps are out.
Yeah.
That if they would have just thrown that one little line in, it would have been fine.
Yeah, would have been totally fine.
It would have been an easy fix. I'm glad they did away with that. I mean, it didn't
serve
add
the story.
anything.
Yeah.
This is what they thought cool villains look like. Ponytails and fogged out eyes and scars.
Oh, how many times, like, think of some of the stuff we saw in the 80s where it's like that cool guy with the eye patch, maybe driving a motorcycle. It was a thing.
It was totally a thing. Well into the 90s even.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at you, Steven Seagal.
Sylvester Stallone or Schwarzenegger. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of people who wouldn't have careers without looking like douchebags.
Yeah. It's true. But, I mean, I have to say the acting in the second one, particularly Charlie, sorry, Drew, but the actress who played Charlie in the remake was a better performance. I found her far stronger in terms of her general sort of presence.
Well, I think she was older.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, because Drew was quite young.
Years.
Yeah, and that does make a big difference.
I mean, the character in the book is 9 years old. I don't know how old the actress in the remake was when she played the role, but Drew was 8.
Yeah, and they said that she was 11 in the movie. Yeah. In the remake. So she was a couple years older. So, I mean, that does make a difference. But yeah, I found Drew, particularly in the beginning, I found her really off note for me.
It did feel like she needed to settle in, which is weird because, I mean, movies aren't shot linearly most of the time. So who knows?
I mean, maybe that's what did it is she had gotten used to playing that stronger character and then pull back to that sort of weaker, meeker character was hard for her.
Yeah.
Especially at 8, it's hard to switch gears like that.
Oh, yeah. Her experience level just wasn't there either. They work shorter hours, the kids.
Yep.
And, I mean, the kid's the star of the show.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, at least they had those flashbacks without Charlie, so gave her some breaks off the set.
Exactly. And my other issue with the original is they flashed to some of her other abilities really briefly, like that psychic ability when she heard the shop soldiers coming, or she knew they were coming, and then they kind of just did away with it. Right? It's like, here's this power, now forget about it.
It was odd, I found in both films, because it did bug me a little bit that I felt like each character had their own unique ability.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, Charlie's is the pyrokinetic. Except she's also telekinetic. Oh, she's also telepathic. I'm like, that would have been nice to see earlier.
Yeah.
So we know
that she's an amalgam, right? Yeah, like she is a superhero, which I love that they say it in the remake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they make the same mistake in both movies.
They do. They handle it a little bit better in the remake, but not much better.
I don't know if I agree with that. I honestly think they gave that to me sooner in the original. I had a much better understanding that actually, I think we saw her use one of her mental abilities before we saw her pyrokinetic powers in the original. I mean, I was expecting it in the remake, but it comes much later.
Not that much later when she turns off the taps in the bathroom.
Yeah. Like it kind of comes in conjunction with. In
conjunction with the first time you see her losing control of her power.
That's right.
So it's there. But I love the self-training scene in the remake. I mean, I could have watched that for a little bit longer, to be honest. But yeah, I love that determination that she presents there.
Yeah, this survival instinct she has hiding in the woods while her dad's caught up in the shop.
And she knows that I need to control this in order to save my dad. Right? And I really love that determination.
Yeah, badass Terminator who's got it all figured out. I mean, the end scene in both movies are rocking.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, considering probably all the flames in the remake are all CGI, it looks pretty good.
It looks pretty good, yeah.
But you got to give it to the practical on the original as well. I mean, the fireballs on strings look a little wonky, but it was all practical.
It was all practical, yeah.
Very dangerous.
Very dangerous, especially with an 8-year-old child on set.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you've also got like extras, stunt actors on trampolines being shot around and everybody's on fire. Like extremely dangerous situation.
It's strangely dangerous.
Yeah.
They had
Volatile.
so much going on. And it was funny. You see a couple of them where she puts the fireball and explodes and the dummy goes up, but it still looks pretty good to me.
Yeah. Well, and that explains why in both movies, a lot of the cast were also stunt people.
Mm-hmm.
Their resume is mostly stunts, but then there's still some acting credits.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and both of them were like that.
Like Dick Warlock, he's got just as many stunt credits as he does acting credits.
Yeah, and there are a few like that.
Yeah.
And understandably so, because then you get a real sense of reality in a situation like this where you're doing practical effects
Mhm.
and you're not having to do the cutaway because your stuntman is the actor.
Yeah.
Well, and also because you've got stunt people, it just makes me think a place like the shop, you'd have people who are kind of athletic. You know, they're kind of tip top to be working there in many instances, like the scary people.
There's that too, right? Your stunt people do tend to sort of be specimens and tend to look at when they're in a uniform or something like that.
Mhm.
And they'll usually have scars too, which makes them look tougher.
Yes.
All right, well, I'm going to run the trailer for the original film, Firestarter from 1984, and we'll be right back.
Charlie McGee is a healthy 8-year-old girl, normal in every way,
Charlie, now watch what you're doing.
but one.
Did she do that?
What are you going to do with her?
I'll bring her here so you can do all your tests. And you give her to me.
Charlie has the power.
Do something bad? Will you still love me?
She can set things on fire
Something's happening in there.
with just a glance. It is a power she does not want,
Stick with him.
Daddy, I'm scared.
So am I, honey.
a power she cannot control.
Back up.
And each night, she prays to be just like every other child.
We haven't got her yet.
We'll have her.
But there are those who will do everything in their power to find her, to control her,
Charlie!
and maybe destroy her.
Charlie!
Come to me, Charlie.
Go! You're gonna have to burn it down, honey. Burn it all down.
Charlie McGee is Stephen King's Firestarter. Will she have the power to survive?
That was the trailer for Firestarter from 1984. This was based on the novel by Stephen King, who also had a hand in the script. And we've talked about Stephen many times. First time was episode 96, when he went under the name Richard Bachman.
That was the Running Man. Yep.
Yeah. Then again in 175.
That was
Pet
Carrie.
Sematary?
No,
Oh, sorry.
that was Carrie.
Skipping ahead. Then episode 210.
Maximum Overdrive.
Yes.
And this might throw you off. Episode 243.
Spotlight on Stephen King.
There you go. And then 361.
Pet Cemetery.
Thanks for joining us.
Hey, she does it from memory, unlike like you and I. We write them down.
That's true. I mean, but Pet Sematary was just this past October.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remembered Running Man, and that was a while ago.
That's true. It's true.
There's blocks. I remember blocks of
That's
things.
the one that I'm surprised anybody knows is Stephen King. Granted, it's very far away from the short story he wrote.
Very, very far away.
This was also written by Stanley Mann, who wrote Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah, for shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does
There it
explain
is.
a lot, actually. I mean, both these movies, when I watched them, like, they would have made half-decent TV movies, but I'm not sure these were up to snuff for theatricals.
I think that
Either one of them.
I think the remake, if it had gotten the 20 minutes that they cut out of the original, I think it could have been a strong theatrical film.
Hmm.
But the original, yeah, just not quite theatrical for me.
Yeah. I mean, ironically, the sequel was a television film. This was also directed by Mark L. Lester, we talked about in episode 102.
That was class of 1984.
That's right. This stars Drew Barrymore as Charlie McGee, and we talked about her in episode 138.
Altered States.
I feel like we did more, but that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
David Keith, not Keith David, David Keith was...
Yeah, always getting that mixed up.
Well, one's white, one's black, so let's try
I
not
know. I try not to, but I keep
And what I
thinking,
like and what I
always
don't.
wished- I already wished that they would have done a buddy movie. It would have been amazing. The poster would have been awesome.
David Keith played Andrew McGee, the father of Charlie. And of course, he was in An Officer and a Gentleman, but we also talked about him in episode 175.
I missed that one.
Carrie. He was in Carrie.
I don't know how I missed that, but I did.
I mean, there were so many people in Carrie. He's probably one of the college students or high school students. Freddie Jones was Dr. Joseph Wanless, and he was in episode 94.
Kroll.
That's right. Heather Locklear was in this as Vicky McGee, the wife. She was a telekinetic, and she's the first one to get killed, but she was already dead at the beginning of this movie, technically.
Yeah, and she was woefully underused.
Yeah, she did a lot of television, Heather Locklear. She was definitely on a lot of people's walls as one of those pinup girls. There were two Heathers in that era that were on everybody's walls, and Locklear was one, and Thomas was the other. The Heathers. Mm-hmm. And then probably the Heathers.
They were 90s, so.
Heather Locklear was in Return of the Swamp Thing, but otherwise you probably know her from lots of television and a lot of Aaron Sorkin stuff.
Yeah, TJ Hooker.
Yeah, that's one of them. She was in the 90210 stuff.
Yeah,
lots of that
Melrose,
stuff.
I think, too.
Melrose, yeah. Martin Sheen was Captain Hollister. Gotta say, I really like Martin Sheen in this.
I like Martin Sheen in anything he does. That's sorry, true. I do.
I mean, you know him from Apocalypse Now, but we talked about him way back in episode 5. Sam wasn't on this one.
I missed that one too.
The Departed.
Oh, yeah. I think I blocked that one.
You know, and I was looking, and I knew that he was in at least one thing we'd done, and I just wasn't seeing it.
Yeah, the most critically acclaimed one that we've ever covered. A Best Picture, no less. Even though we like the original Japanese one better.
Well, not the most, because we have a reference connection to probably one of the more...
Well, that we've covered. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's coming.
It's coming.
George C. Scott was John Rainbird, and he's in some other horror classics of the era, Exorcist 3 and The Changeling. Art Carney was Irv Manders, and you know him from The Honeymooners as...
Ralph
Cramden. And we have talked about him before. First time is episode 178.
Last Action Hero.
And then very recently in episode 344.
Going in style.
Louise Fletcher was Norma Manders, the wife of Irv. And we talked about her first in the What the Hell Were We Thinking episode 54.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
Yes. Go listen to it. It's fun. But... we never should have attempted to remake that movie.
No, never.
Sam was just trying to make me watch it.
And it was, hey, you got to see it.
And it was fantastic.
Yeah. Yes.
And again, Louise Fletcher, we talked about in episode 194.
Invaders from Mars, and there's one more.
Oh, I missed that one.
Second episode, Best of the Best.
She's the mom.
She's the mom. I wasn't even there for that episode.
No, you weren't. And the man with the coolest name in Hollywood, Moses Gunn, plays Dr. Pincott. And we talked about him in episode 125, and I probably said how cool his name was then.
Yep. Rollerball.
Drew Snyder was Orville Jameson. He was in Commando and War Games, another couple of 80s classics. And Dick Warlock I need to mention because, well, did a lot of stunts in this movie. He was also an actor in this movie as Knowles, and we talked about him in episode 108.
Pumpkinhead.
That's right, and that's as far as I went. Unless you want to keep
that's as far as I went. But you might have mentioned him in episode 289 when you guys did Movies from the Deep because he was in The Abyss. And you talked about George C. Scott at length in our Christmas Carol episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because you watched the TV version that he was in.
That's right.
He is in some cool stuff.
All right, so let's talk about the 84.
Well, coming into this, I rented this movie a lot when I was younger, but to be honest, when I was watching it, I completely forgot Martin Sheen was in this movie.
I had too, which is funny because I watched this movie for our Stephen King episode. There was stuff I remembered. I remember George C. Scott and his funky eye.
Yeah.
I remember all of the experimentation that's like an hour of this movie being really fucking boring.
Yes.
Still is.
Yeah.
Still is. Right. And that was the thing last time I saw this was probably in the 80s, probably about 86, 87. And I'm going, this is really boring. And I haven't seen it since. And then so watching it this time, I'm like, yep, everything I didn't like about it the first time I saw it, I still don't like.
And that's the problem. This should be interesting. Like, there's a lot to like and digest here.
You have characters with psychic powers.
Yeah. Well, there's an in when you are a little girl and you've watched it at just the right time. You're like, I'm going to go outside and try to start fires with my mind.
Yes, I remember being a little girl.
But that's what I did. Like, that's why I watched this movie. I'm like, I wonder if I could start fires with my mind.
And I get that, but yeah, I just think that there was too much focus on the chase in both movies and not as much on the growth of these two characters.
Well, I liked the chase. I really did. But you needed to introduce us to the characters properly first, which I felt the remake did better.
Yes. And the chase was tighter. It was still good in the remake. Like, it did what I wanted. Is it gave us the chase without making it overlong.
But they did wind up trimming out all that boring experimentation stuff from the original film to give us more of that and more of the family dynamic, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Because I got to know these people.
Yeah, the experimentation was all just basically the opening sequence.
Yeah.
And you know what? That was enough.
Yeah, they basically show you them doing their silly college testing in the opening credits as a montage.
Yeah.
Worked fine for me.
Yeah.
That's all I really needed.
Yeah, you know what happened to them.
I was more interested in who they were now.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I feel you got more of a sense of the mother's powers. Because in the first one, for the longest time, all I thought Heather Locklear could do was read minds or communicate telepathically. I didn't know she had telekinesis or was supposed to, but at least in this movie, I could see it happen.
Yeah. I mean, they were more defined in this one because the original film, initially I thought, okay, he's telepathic, she's telekinetic, the kid's pyrokinetic. Then they're laying on the bed and holding hands, laying next to each other, and they're talking to each other with their minds. Like, oh, okay, so she does have some telepathic powers as well. But she was definitely stronger on the telekinetic side of things, where his strength was in what he was calling the push in the remake. Of the telepathic powers were the power of suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, his Dr. Xavier powers.
I'm glad that they were able to keep that. Like, when he convinced the cab driver his $1 bill was $5 bill was $500. You couldn't get away with that in Canada. I kept thinking about it. Ours are different colors. You got to be given an extra push.
Yes.
All that monopoly money in the States. Sorry.
Yeah. and we don't have $500 bills in Canada either. Do they even? Do they have?
No, we do have them. It's nobody carries them around.
Well, because nobody will take them.
Nobody will take them.
Nobody can break them.
No. That'd be the first thing I would think of. I'm like, well, that's fake.
Yeah.
But the doing the $100 thing made more sense in the remake. It's just too bad he did it to a nice person.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think what they were doing to like smooth that over is that Irv was a kind of a damaged person who'd done a bad thing, and it was like they're trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Like, he's responsible for the accident and he knows that, but he lies about that, and probably he was also drunk at the time of the accident.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're skipping to an accident, but you're not giving people context of what that accident is.
Oh, well, the car crash that put his wife in basically a bed in an almost vegetative state for 30 years and killed his son.
Yeah, and that's all in the remake. That's all made up for the new version. Heartfelt backstory. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cheap emotional tugs, but it works.
Especially considering they don't go back to them like they did in the original.
Well, I mean, because these movies travel different paths, like I do prefer that original ending because you have this loving husband and wife with no damaged history between them. And you've had a father who's sacrificed himself for his daughter. So she had to go somewhere, and she went to the last friendly people
that she remembers.
She remembers.
Oh, yeah. Probably the only.
Yeah. And so that was really nice because we weren't introduced to anybody else. So it probably makes more sense that he has relatives or something, or parents that he could drop the kid off. But we're not shown any of that in the film. Well, so these are the people that make sense.
Oh, but they do explain that. Because when they go to his father's cabin.
Oh, yes.
He had passed like 3 years before, something like that.
Yeah. So they do mention that. That's correct. Yeah.
But yeah, it still works a little bit better than what they gave us. There's probably the biggest sour point for me with the remake is that final moment there.
Oh, I did not like it. I did not like it one bit. I'm like, well,
I see what they were trying to do, but they didn't give enough with Rainbird to make that work.
Yeah. So suddenly Rainbird, who killed the mom, is now the parental unit.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
That one bothered me.
If you're worried about a nuclear bomb, you should be really worried now, because here's a guy who was a weapon.
Yeah.
And unlike Rainbird in the original, who's just a trained merc.
And a psychopath.
Definitely a psychopath. This guy's still a psychopath with fucking power.
Yes. And I mean, they give you a moment where that kind of explains it, but it's not enough.
No. You know, they do give you the words where he regrets his past or he's trying to put it behind him. Then he's just cold-hearted as we expect him to be, even more so.
Yeah.
He's far scarier to me than George C. Scott was.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, George C. Scott was creepy in a whole different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I felt they had a completely missed opportunity is what they should have done is when he was calling to Charlie. It should have been communication between the two of them where he gets to know her, and they didn't do that. It would have helped explain a lot. It would have helped explain his turn.
Well, it would have made more sense if they had done what they did in the original where he befriends her while she's in prison, but they don't imprison her in this remake. Then it would have made sense because then they would have had that connection and it would have totally tied in and I would have bought it a lot easier. Mm-hmm. But you have the opposite situation here where he's the one who's imprisoned and she rescues him.
Well, no, like
she doesn't even rescue him, she frees him.
Yeah, but I mean, like he also had powers. Her dad said he wasn't the one who called to her.
Yes.
So it had to be Rainbird.
Yes, they do explain all of that, but again, none of it ties tightly enough to give you
but that's what I'm saying,
reason for that ending to work the way it did.
If there had been more of psychic conversation between the two of them, you could possibly see how he made
to replace the imprisonment, the get to know you stuff in the
having Rainbird call out to Charlie and Charlie thinking it's her dad just feels like luring her into the trap, like luring her to the place that Dad wants her to be at in the least.
Yeah,
he wants her out there and free, and he sacrificed himself to make sure that happens. So Rainbird, it feels like he's still playing into it, even though he's been taking capture, even though he did exactly what Hollister wanted him to do.
That didn't make sense either.
No. There's a lot of stuff with his character that's like
just feels forced.
Well, feels like several rewrites got mushed together.
Yeah. Or some really critical stuff got cut out of the final theatrical cut.
Yeah.
Like there's some critical stuff missing of that character. Right? I think we were all in agreement of that. Even though he had the potential to be a really interesting character in the film.
Yeah, they got a pretty cool actor for that too. Yeah, just the potential was lost.
Yeah.
When we say they've made multiple mistakes, that was definitely one of them.
Yeah. And probably the biggest as far as I'm concerned. Because they made him such a key character without giving him anything to grab onto.
Yeah. The original one's very basic in its plot setup. The remake's a lot more complex in that regard. Like it's run, get caught, and then just 45 minutes or so of experimentation, which I barely watched. I barely tuned into. I was just fiddling on my iPad most of it because it was so boring.
It really drew it out without giving you anything.
No, it gives you nothing. That's the biggest crime there was. Nothing's developed. There's no relationships developed. It's just, what can we do with this person? I mean, there's little things like Andrew's fainting. Like, they've got him drugged up so his powers aren't working properly, or so we're meant to believe. Either that or he's faking it. And you can make arguments for both.
Well, they leave it ambiguous enough that you don't really know.
Yeah. But that's all that really establishes, and it's just, that sure seemed like a lot of time wasted for so little.
And the funny thing is they give us all this whole bit where Rainbird spends all that time with Charlie trying to bait her and guide her into giving them what they want.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go where it needed to. And then you have the remake where you needed those moments and we didn't get them.
Yeah. No, there's no happy medium. It's funny how they address the things in the original, like, okay, there's not enough character development. We don't know who these people are. And they give it to us and they do a very good job with it. And then they go stumble on the other part. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
but it's only like the McGee family that they're very good at developing, really. I mean, Hollister's a mess. I mean, technically Hollister's a mess in both of them.
Yes, but at least because of the way Sheen played him in the original, you get a sense of who he is even without getting a lot of time with him. But
well, I think you still get more time with him ultimately. Like when you look at the minutes spent.
Oh, probably.
Because she shows up 1, 2, 3 times. That's it?
Yeah, like I understand what Martin Sheen's motives are. They're essentially looking for a weapon.
Yes.
I mean,
and he says it.
Yeah, whereas the original Doctor who did the experimentations, like, she's a nuclear bomb, kill her before she gets set off. That's your only option, destroy her. And, I mean, they make the same argument in the remake, which is fine. It makes sense, even though you see a lot less proof towards it.
Oh, yeah, she has far more control. than Drew's version of the character, particularly by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Even at the end of the original film, it does still feel kind of wild, whereas in that remake, she is in control.
Yeah, when she's in control, she has to justify things she's not comfortable doing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things she's done by accident. The remake's definitely gorier in that regard.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, and buts about it.
Yeah.
Like you get a burnt up cat that's still half alive and
Yeah.
Dad's like, these are the consequences.
Yeah.
And now you have to do the humane thing. And she had to do it again with a human being.
Yeah, but she had no hesitation about it. She knew what was right in that situation.
Yeah, she did. This guy's suffering. There's no coming back from this.
Yeah. And she asked if he had a gun. He decided not to tell her. That was on him.
Mm-hmm. And she understands the necessity. And there's a potential for the remake version being much scarier. Because she says the one line that Drew never says. I kind of like the feeling.
Yeah, it feels pretty good.
It feels pretty good. So where she ends up in this film, in the remake, is a much scarier place because here's a guy she's now partnered with who killed her mother.
And who's very comfortable with killing people.
And very comfortable with killing people. And the potential there is just terrifying because what she does in the end is like full carry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I could have clung to for his turn, and it occurred to me a little while ago, if he was kind of happy for her to come because he kind of saw her potential. He's like, oh yeah, this place will go down in flames as long as I get her here. And I don't care if I go with it, because he was kind of ready to submit and die at that moment.
Yeah,
so.
They both have that moment. Both Vernon and Rainbird have that moment where they're ready to go and they're trying to make their moment of contrition.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But like Jay has said already, there's not enough Rainbird in this movie for you to understand that.
Yeah, like that's why you end up filling in a lot of the backstory in your own head to make it make sense.
Yeah, I almost feel like we need to see Rainbird before Hollister makes her approach and see him kind of at peace in his own life right now because he's in the mountains. He's kind of staying away from people. And you want to know the whys and wherefores, right?
Yeah.
Like he's left the shop. He obviously has a dark past, but what motivated him to leave that behind? I mean, there are assumptions you can make by being in the mountains alone. You don't have all that world noise in your head.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing too is, how did they let him go?
Yeah.
I mean,
why did they let any of them go?
Well, exactly. Well, they explain that really well in the remake. They've been on the run. They have different names. They've changed their names a bunch of times. That's why they move a lot because of Daddy's work, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
So they do kind of cover that ground that they got away.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't explain why Rainbird was let to leave.
Yeah, I mean, the simplicity of Rainbird in the original kind of works for the character because he's less complicated. There's no psychic powers. He's just a merc for hire.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an off-the-books thing. So he's going in to get this kid.
He's getting paid.
And all these other guys are having real trouble. It's like, hey, wear your fire gear and you'll be fine. I mean, the remake has these ridiculous contact lenses that keep the psychic powers from working. Like, oh, is that how they work? Because that doesn't make sense.
No. They tried.
Yeah.
Well,
that was one of the sillier things.
In the original, they do make a comment, but it's in passing where they're like, don't look him in the eyes. And I think that's what they were hoping people
that's
remembered.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. He does say they have to make eye contact. They actually do it in the remake too, because remember, they stand
That's
behind
why
things
they
like-
wear the contacts. That
Yeah.
they
And
constantly,
how great.
Yeah, they constantly glow red to remind you.
Yeah. But there's the first time we see Rainbird, actually not the first time we see Rainbird, but when he arrives at their home, he says to her that you have to make eye contact to make it work.
Yeah.
Like he actually says that. So
I mean, when they finally, in the original, they collect
Mm-hmm.
Charlie, all of the other guys are in the fire suits except for Rainbird. He's just such a badass. Like, what's the problem? This was pretty easy.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, he knocked them both out. They can't do anything when they're knocked out.
Exactly.
No, but in the remake, what I loved about it, and this also kind of goes to the looking them in their eyes, they show like the pupil dilation. And man, what a great smoking cessation program this guy could have. He should be rich.
Yeah, that was actually pretty neat use of his powers.
It was. Yeah, he's using it to benefit other people while making money himself.
Yeah.
It did sound
I mean,
like...
$100 is cheap.
And it did sound like it came at a cost of his own mental health, too. I mean, he was getting the micro fissures in his own head, but I think he was actually taking on their addiction as well. Because they actually make a point in the remake of saying he's a smoker who's trying to quit, even though he's doing it for other people.
Yeah.
So I don't know
But
if he can't convince himself and push himself, so it's a lot harder to go through. Or he's taking on that addiction into himself.
I mean, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I mean, it doesn't correlate to the rest of his abilities, but it's possible.
No. Well,
I just thought he couldn't push himself.
Yeah. Did anybody else think that Andy was a bit of a dick in the first act of the remake?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Well, it was kind of okay. He was a troubled father who was like trying his best, but he didn't understand the best way to help Charlie. He thought he was protecting her. Like, he's kind of just a misguided parent, essentially.
He is. His approach was very aggro to me. He was just so, like, stomping his foot, this is the way it is kind of dude. And
well, I mean, I actually appreciated the argument that the two parents were having.
Mm-hmm.
I love the argument.
Yeah, you have the one who's like, well, she's got these powers. If we help her control it, it'll be much safer. Like, they're not going away. Whereas he's just like, bury them, let's never talk about it.
Because look what they do to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and his argument's valid. Like, I get it. Maybe it was the way it was written or the way it was directed, but even though I agreed with his argument, I didn't agree with him because of the way he presented his argument.
Right.
Right. And that was my issue with it. And I mean, I like the actor. I like Zac Efron. And I think that he is really good at delivering a nuanced performance.
Yeah.
But I don't think they let him do that.
He looked pretty good in this. Like, I still think of young Zac Efron, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, he's all grown up.
You put a beard on him. I'm like going, okay, this works. I like it.
Yeah.
But you have the bit at the end where he's like, one more push could kill him. So he uses his last one to get his daughter to burn him and the captain alive.
Wow.
It was pretty bold, and I freaking loved it.
After saying he'd never push his daughter.
Yeah. But he made a decision to protect her.
Yeah, by turning into a murderer.
Well, he was like, they're never going to let him go. I mean, she already tested that they're never going to call a doctor. Nothing's ever going to happen. He's like, I'm going to be strapped to this chair until they torture me to death.
And
fuck it.
Yeah, and they're just going to do it to others.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And man, Captain Hollister in that one, Gloria Rubin, she's just all over the map going,
yeah,
I'm doing this for you. Like, this is the best thing for you. I'm trying to help Charlie. Wait, what? Killing her parental units? That makes no sense. Ugh.
Yeah.
Frustrating. You know what? You can be frustrated with me. Let's run the trailer.
Daddy.
What's going on, sweetie?
Something feels weird. Something's changing.
You remember the tools we taught you, right?
Pencil, desk, paper, shoes. You're weird. Everything okay, Charlie? It happened again.
What happened?
The bad thing.
If you ever start to lose control, what do you do?
It didn't work.
She's not a robot, Andy. She's a little girl. With little girl emotions, which are wildly unpredictable.
Charlie?
She just has to shove it down and keep it hidden.
Our responsibility is getting her ready.
Our responsibility is to protect her.
Charlie?
If they catch her, they're going to put her in a cage.
Charlie?
They're going to run tests on her for the rest of her life. We'll never see her again.
If who catches me?
Something's happened. I need it handled with discretion. And I need her back alive.
Holy shit. Do you know what it means to be on the run?
Bad men are after us. Really bad.
I hate living like this!
You're special, Charlie.
I'm not special. I'm a monster! Charlie!
I want to help her.
You want to use her.
Charlie?
Don't be stupid.
Where's Mommy?
Do you feel that? Let her go or it's going to get a lot worse.
Where's Mommy? Tell me now!
She's the first of her kind. A real life superhero.
You need to understand how to use it. It can't be a reaction. It's got to be a decision. That's the only way that you can control it.
She's becoming a young woman.
I'm not going to jail.
And someday soon,
You're going to change the world.
She may be capable of a nuclear explosion.
Run, Charlie! On your knees!
Simply with the force of her mind.
The whole world's going to hell.
Promise me that you'll never use your gifts to hurt people.
I'll only hurt bad people, I promise.
Trust me, Charlie. You don't have to be afraid. Please, I can help you.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. I don't want to hurt anyone, but it feels kind of good.
That was a trailer for Firestarter 2022, directed by Keith Thomas, who directed The Vigil. His credits are still pretty small, but he's got some skills. Not too bad. Mm-hmm. This is a screenplay by Scott Teems, who wrote Halloween Kills, which, if you listen to my review on 31 Days of Horror, but don't take my word for it, because I don't like most of the Halloween movies. This stars Zac Efron as Andy McGee, who we talked about in episode 179.
Hairspray.
And Ryan Kiera Armstrong, a very great young actress with a lot of potential. She plays Charlie McGee. You probably saw her in Black Widow. And It Chapter 2, Sydney Lemon was Vicky McGee. And you might remember her from the short-lived Marvel show Hellstrom. Michael Grey Eyes was Rainbird, and he was in the Canadian zombie movie Blood Quantum.
Yes, he was also in one of my favorite Bruce McDonald's films, Dance Me Outside.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's where I knew him from.
Gloria Rubin, as we've mentioned, is Captain Hollister, and you can catch her in another Marvel show, Cloak and Dagger, and Mr. Robot.
Yeah, and she was also my favorite character on
Kurtwood Smith plays Dr. Joseph Wanless. He's a bit wasted in this one.
He gets one scene.
Yeah. We don't even see him in the flashbacks doing the experiments. Like, what, you couldn't afford the de-aging technology? I mean, if this is the guy running the experiments and then we see him in old folks' home going, no, kill her. That's the best way to do. Liquidate the kid before she goes off. And he's almost unrecognizable for a little bit there.
Yeah.
He's in episode 26.
I missed 26.
That was Oscar.
I always miss Oscar.
And then episode 132, you can't miss that one.
That was RoboCop.
Yeah, we talked about him a couple of times, and I love him when he plays a bad guy.
He's so good at a bad guy.
But if you haven't watched those movies, that 70s show. And that 90s show.
Yeah, and that 90s show, yeah.
John Beasley is Irv Manders. He's definitely another one of those guys you saw in that thing the one time, and you catch him in The Purge Anarchy, or episode 97 we talked about.
I missed so many on this one.
Walking Tall. Tina Jung was Miss Gardner, and she's in Strays and You're My Hero, both television shows. Hannon Eunice is Darla Gurney, and she was in episode 226.
I didn't miss this one. It was Rabid.
Yes, and the last one, Jerry Ferdman plays Eisman. I don't know what an Eisman is, but he must have been one of the soldiers or something. I don't know. But he was in I Spit on Your Grave, Deja Vu, and Dominion. Bunch of young up-and-comers.
Yeah, quite a few, yeah.
Yeah, as we said, this one's a little more action-orientated, even though the chase isn't any longer, I don't think, in this one, because we do have the initial setup. There's a lot of just the family together, and we're seeing the powers and the struggles that Charlie has. And that's something we don't see in the original film. And we see how she's bullied in school and not integrating very well in that school, probably because she's bouncing around a lot. Because they're on the run.
Yeah. And she's different from the other kids because she brings up is like, we don't have Wi-Fi, we don't have cell phones. And nowadays, if you're a kid who doesn't have those things, other kids may bully you and be like, oh, your parents can't afford to give you this stuff.
Yeah, and that's a good point of relevance for some of the issues that we're seeing constantly now is childhood bullying and perception of people's lives based on the things that they have.
Yeah, hey kids, you listening to our podcast on your cell phones? One, you shouldn't be listening to our podcast. We are foul people with foul mouths. And two, stop bullying that kid without a cell phone. You're a jerk.
Yeah, and also with social media, stop bullying the kids with cell phones. And when they're at home and they're just trying to fucking chill.
Trust
Leave
me,
it alone.
my life was so much easier without a damn smartphone.
Yes.
Just go play.
Yeah. Be a kid, but don't be a douche.
Yeah, don't be a douchey kid. Nobody likes the douchey kid. We all know what
Yeah.
your future's going to be.
We have a list of
President of the
80s
United
movies.
States.
We have a list of 80s movies that will prove that things will go badly for you.
Right. If only that were true.
I know. Movie logic.
For everything that makes sense in this movie, there's another thing that doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, it starts off so well. Like, that first half is wonderful. I feel like everything's kind of working. And then as soon as Captain Hollister's introduced, it just goes to shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They don't tie the two pieces together properly.
Yeah.
Like that second act should have been tying the two pieces together.
Yeah. I mean, both the final scenes are fantastic, but boy, that middle part of both of them.
Yeah.
Bad for different reasons entirely. I mean, it comes down to bad characterizations of the rest of the cast outside of the family.
Yeah. And in the original, your bad guys had more character than the family.
Yeah, and then there's all that wasted time where you could have been doing something there.
In both movies.
Yeah.
Although in the remake, the one thing I truly, truly enjoyed is she's walking through like the suburbs and these guys decide to try and bully her a bit. And they do regret it. Takes the one kid's clothes and his bike and takes off.
She was like full on Terminator. They just stole that scene from the Terminator. I like your bike.
Yeah.
And
The only
clothes.
thing different. Yeah, the only thing different was the Terminator didn't take anybody's sandwich.
That was the first time we really got to see her push people.
Yeah.
Like the telepathic part of her powers. We hadn't really seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way they kind of pieced out that she had more power, right? So that first scene within the bathroom where she turns off the faucets, and then that scene where she pushes, and then the scene where she shows that when just before she kills the cat, she's playing with her telekinetic abilities again, right? So you're getting them just a little pieces that she's more than just the Firestarter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they do that a lot better in that remake.
Yeah. And I guess it makes sense with the pyrokinetic powers in the original film. I mean, she's not just lighting fires. She's tossing fireballs and like their missiles and stuff. So all that telekinetic stuff makes a lot of sense. But we don't see her using the telepathic powers all that much.
No, because there's no cause for her to use them in the original.
Well, yeah, but there's always that should I, shouldn't I thing as a kid. And especially when the telepathic powers would probably get you a lot more.
Yeah.
They're on the run, so I guess you don't want to draw attention. But, I mean, when you have those kind of powers, Jesus.
Well, it wouldn't have worked in the original film because if she had control of those abilities in the original film, then when she says, I want to see my father, she would have been able to see her father.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I'm like, if she had them fully developed, she would have been Martin Sheen. I don't want your hot chocolate. I want to talk to my dad.
Yeah. Which is why they gave us the high-powered contacts in the remake. Just so you could go, well, why didn't she do that? Well, she can't.
Yeah.
Ha! Apparently they've had this problem before. They've had this developed for a while, so...
Well, and, that's another thing that wasn't quite developed enough.
Yeah, at least we see other people being experimented on in the original film and how they reacted to the original drug, which was just a kick-ass high for a lot of them, or a bad trip in some cases.
Yeah.
But we don't see anybody else being experimented on. They literally focus on the two characters.
And they don't talk about the Project 6.
Yeah, Lot 6.
Or Lot 6, sorry.
Yeah, well, they do mention it, but we see kind of the paperwork. That's kind of in the opening montage.
But they don't talk about the program like they did, like they did in the original.
Oh, no. They made sure we knew what Lot 6 was.
Yeah, to an extreme. Like they missed the balancing point on that one in the remake because they went the other way and didn't give us quite enough.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of funny to me, and noticing it on this watch of the original, where they talk about Lot 6 a lot and the shop. And it seems like everybody knows about the shop. So if everybody knows about the shop, it's not that top secret.
Yeah, right. He was mentioning this shop to Irv.
Yeah.
He knew what the shop was. I'm like, the farmer knows what the shop is? Why does the farmer know what the shop is?
Yes. How famous is this shop?
Yeah.
If you're doing top secret shit, you're bad at it.
Yeah, for a clandestine agency, you're not very clandestine.
No.
I guess this is their version of Manchurian Candidate in the Stephen King-averse.
Yeah, it would have that now we're into remaking a remake territory, but it would have been interesting if Irv did know about it for a very different reason. But we're not remaking it.
No, we're not. Because if we were remaking it, what I would have said is something happened to Essie at the shop, and that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
But we're not doing that. No.
Yeah, maybe next week.
Yeah.
The original film budgeted $15 million. The budget didn't really change, actually. It actually went down for the remake.
Wow.
Yeah, it was $12 million in 2022.
Less practical effects.
Yeah. The
But
CGI was cheaper.
Would you say for the time frame they had bigger names in 84? Like George C. Scott and Martin Sheen wouldn't have been cheap, would they?
No, and Drew probably wasn't even that cheap. Even though she's young, she was hot after E.T.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to put her in everything.
I mean, we weren't seeing like the same paychecks that people see now, but they probably didn't come cheap. Opening weekend for the original film was $4.7 million, went on to gross a little over $17 million, which means it was a bomb because it barely made its budget back.
Yep.
Which means didn't make its advertising budget back, so they lost money on that one.
Well, I mean, in VHS rentals, I did what I could. I was trying to figure out how to start those fires with my mind.
Very good. At least you were out there supporting her. And
I was.
Yeah. The budget for the remake was $12 million, had an opening weekend less than the original film at just under $4 million, and then went on to gross worldwide a little over $15 million. So, same territory.
Yeah, same territory.
Yeah.
And that's a shame.
And that's even worse because, modern day cinema, you need to triple your budget to make any damn money.
Yeah, and the remake should have been able to do that. It really should have been able to. It had
Stephen King's name.
Stephen King's name. You had Zac Efron, who isn't as hot.
He's still hot.
Yeah, but he's not the hot name that he used to be. But he still should be enough of a draw to bring in more than 15 million. And I feel this is one of those.
This is like It Chapters 1 and 2. Granted, the Pet Sematary remake didn't do boffo box office either.
But
everybody has Stephen King fever. I mean, because Dr. Sleep did do very well.
I think the part of the problem too is, and it's remake syndrome. We talk about it all the time. It's like, oh, it's a remake. It's going to suck.
Yeah.
I love the original. I don't want to see this. Stop doing that, really. Because the Pet Sematary remake was very watchable. This remake was very watchable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any worse. They're equal level films for me. They're both 5 out of 10s for different reasons.
I would agree with you on that one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I might give a slight edge to the remake, but just a very slight one, like 0.1.
Yeah, whereas I might give it a little bit more to the original one, but I don't know if that's nostalgia goggles or just something about the old cinema and practical that makes me happy. But
yeah, I just
overall, they're both.
I just think the performances from our central characters were stronger in the remake, and that's where the 0.1 comes from.
I will give you that. The central characters, your McGees, were very well handled.
Yeah, and that's where I get my extra 0.1% personally.
Yeah, I wish I could have taken that version of the McGees, the more well-rounded version, than put them in the original film. Yeah. Somewhere in between those two, there's a really good movie.
Yes.
If I could just pick the pieces I want, it would be a great movie.
Yep. I agree.
I mean, there's a portion of me that kind of almost, because they were such a good family unit in the remake, a part of me did wish that the mother would have lasted a bit longer. So we could have had more.
Yeah, because she was very good.
She was very good. And we got her a lot longer in the remake than we did in the original.
Oh, yeah.
I know, but I still wanted more.
Yeah. I mean, Heather Locklear was fine.
Yeah.
But
they just didn't use her.
Yeah, she wasn't nearly as personable.
No, because she had no screen time.
Yeah.
Much as I would have loved to see the family unit a little bit more, I think they gave us just the right amount because you needed to lose her. Mm-hmm. It was key to Charlie's journey.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes you're attached to something when it's working.
Yeah.
And you're like, we're going into somewhere, I think it's not going to work. I can't do this.
Yeah. I think we're immune to nostalgia at this point.
We should be. Yeah, but I think, Trish, that's why it worked so well for you is because they took her away because you liked her and it worked. So now it affects you the way it should. Whereas in the original, you don't get that sense because it's completely disconnected from the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And actually watching her fight off her attacker, that was a new wrinkle because she's so underused. They literally just kill her off screen in the original.
IMDb gives the original one a 6 out of 10.
That's generous.
That's pretty good. I think nostalgia again kicking in on that one. Where the remake's only a 4.6.
That's
unfair.
It's a little on the low side as far as I'm concerned, but it's closer to being accurate as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, surely Rotten Tomatoes, the critics might be doing a little better. What do you think the critics gave the original film?
46.
I'm gonna copy. Well, actually, I'm gonna go a little bit lower. I'm gonna go 37. Oh, original? No, sorry, 40. I have 46 is actually a really good number.
Yeah, Sam, you should have stuck with your first one. 38%.
Oh, wow.
Damn it. See, I knew one of us would be right, but it's like, yeah, we both kind of take a number that's close.
Yeah.
That's our job, Sam. That's what we'll do.
Now, is there enough of the beginning to make the critics recognize the strong beginning and forgive the weaker second half of the film? What do you think of the critics gave the remake?
I don't know, because I think they might be unfair.
Did critics see it? Well, they did see it, apparently.
Yeah. Hopefully I say 54.
I'm going to stay on that low side. I'm going to go with 41%.
10%.
What?
Oh, that's fucking unfair.
Yeah, 10%. That's pretty harsh, guys.
Yeah, see, I'd give that to the writing on Gloria Reuben's character. That's easily a 10%, but just that part.
If you base it on that second act slightly into the third, oh yeah. I mean, if the whole movie was like that, 10%, no problem. But, I mean, that first third is really strong.
It's really strong. The self-training montage is really strong.
Yeah.
The acting for...
And the badass closure of her just burning it all down.
Yeah.
I mean,
with such focus.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's definitely unfair. What do you think the fans gave the original film?
I think they loved it, 71%.
I'm going to go with 61.
53. But
damn it, I should have done my other number.
I feel like that's a little more in the pocket. And what do you think they thought of the remake?
23.
54.
47.
Oh.
So it's pretty good. I mean, it's not great. There's I think Sam liked the movie more than I did, but
not by much.
I mean,
no,
they probably fell off right at the same point we did.
Yeah,
I didn't read the reviews, but I mean, I could pinpoint where that would happen.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm watching the first half and going, why do people hate this?
Yeah, me too.
I'm like, why do people hate this so much?
And then
I'm like, oop, there it is.
And then you hit Hollister and Rainbird, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
I see it now.
Yep.
I see it now.
And then they won me back for a little while.
Yep.
Right up until the walking away along the beach scene.
Yeah.
Oof. I did not like that.
No.
But you know what? I at least respect them for doing a what the fuck ending.
Yes. At least there was that. And I mean, I got it because I was able to infer enough from what we did get at Rainbird. I'm like, okay, I know what they were doing there. They didn't do it right, but I know what they were doing there, so I didn't go, oh, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you at the end.
Exactly.
I just went, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we can put out the flame on this one. That's it for Firestarter.
I am the Firestarter.
We didn't start the fire. Yeah, you didn't think I was going to go there, did you?
Great balls of fire.
I'm never surprised anymore. Never. Disappointed, yes. Surprised, no.
Yeah, you know what? I know I'm not even there, but I can almost hear the eye rolls.
I'm a Firestarter. You're a Firestarter. Well, last week we were at Calgary Expo by your standards, but in our reality, we haven't been there yet. So by the time you hear this, we'll have done that. And next week, we will give you our live show from the Calgary Expo where we remake Batman and Robin. So no hints. No, just go watch the movie. Join us next week to listen in if you couldn't make it to the Calgary Expo. Too bad, but thanks to anybody who did, because you're going to be in that episode.
Yes.
You will be.
But you will be.
You get to come play.
So hopefully we can get to do more of these live shows down the road, unless it sucks. We'll find out. Yeah. It's all new for us too. But if you like what we do each and every week, give us a 5-star rating and a short review over on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to your podcast, because help get some more
earballs
on the show. Another way you can help out the show is buying some of our merch. It helps keep us free for you every single week. And the quickest way to do that is go over to our website,
invasionoftheremake.wixsite.com/podcast.
And you can press that button that says store or shop. Store. Go press that store button. It'll take you to our TeePublic Store where you can buy our merch and t-shirts, mugs, posters, PPE, masks, totes, notebooks, stickers, magnets, and all sorts of cool stuff with well over 70 designs to choose from and more coming at you all the time. So go check it out. Every little bit helps and you get something cool for it. Sam works hard on this.
Yeah.
He's Sam. He does things.
Yep, he does. And there's some really cool stuff there. So go check it out and you'll get a cool shirt out of it or a pillow, whatever.
Yep.
You know,
Notebook,
even a sticker. We'll get a little bit from that too. So,
hey, the stickers are a good deal because you can get a bunch of designs for like $5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you dig what we do, then you can get a little sample that way with the stickers and you stick them on your notebooks or whatever. And
or your guitar case.
You know what? Yeah. That was really cool. I want that on a shirt. So go check it out. And why don't you follow us on our social media? Because sometimes we do sales over on TeePublic, and we'll let you know on our social media, but you won't know unless you follow us. So go follow us at Invasion Remake on Twitter. Yeah, we're still there.
We're still there.
Invasion of the Remake on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And of course, you can email us your suggestions, your corrections, and your comments. And of course, those fan challenges, send them our way to invasionoftheremake@gmail.com. And that's about it this week. We're going to be happy to present to you our Batman and Robin episode next week. We're very excited to get there, but this is our past and your future. So let's go say, yeah, we had fun. It was a great time.
It is going to be a great time. I mean, maybe something we never want to do again.
We'll find out.
Yeah. But we'll have a good time.
It will be an experience. That's what I'm going with.
I know it's going to be a good time. I'm confident this one's going to be a fun one. Everybody knows Batman and Robin's not that great, so... It's a Batman story. We get to recreate a Mr. Freeze story. Come on.
So true. And actually, the timing is really good because we still haven't seen a Mr. Freeze in any of the new Batman stuff. So.
And with him possibly being the villain in the next Batman movie.
So good timing.
Yeah. So this is very good timing for us. And yeah, that one's going to be interesting. We'll have to record a little bit in studio, kind of set it up for you and close it out because our time on stage isn't as long as we normally have here in the studio. So we'll tack on a little bit extra for you guys as well. So if you were at the show, well, I was there. No, you haven't heard it all yet.
Nope.
So everybody's got a reason to come back to listen to the Batman and Robin episode. All right, we'll catch you next week. And then the week after that, we'll be back in studio with our next thing. So until then, I've been Jason.
I'm always Sam.
And I continue to be Trish.
And we are out of here.
If you can, Charlie. And if you have to kill anybody that gets in your way, I want you to do it. You let them know that this is a war, Charlie. You gotta get out of here. Do it for me. Do it for me, baby, you understand? You make it so they can't ever do anything like this again. You'll have to burn it all down, baby. Burn it all down.